Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. For the past few years, I've been reviewing Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes for Halloween. Let's keep this tradition going by reviewing a Treehouse of Horror 8 for this year. The first story is called The Omega Man, a segment inspired by the Charlton Heston film The Omega Man, which was based on the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. In this tale, Mayor Quimby insults the French, which creates political tension, so Homer goes to buy a bomb shelter for his family. While testing out one bomb shelter at the store, France drops a nuclear missile on Springfield. Then, Homer emerges from the shelter, believing that he's the only survivor, and starts having some fun. Man, this episode is kind of unsettling to watch from today's perspective, considering how a potential nuclear war is looming over the world right now. As silly as it's portrayed in this story, it's a very relatable situation for someone watching this in 2017. I think the best thing about this segment is watching Homer having fun with the freedom that comes with being the last person alive. Seeing what crazy or self-serving activity he'll do next can be very entertaining and makes us think, what would I do in Homer's situation? Sure, the show never addresses how the nuclear fallout left behind doesn't affect Homer, but that's not the point of the story. Homer later finds out that some townspeople survived the blast and have become a cult of radioactive mutants. This adds some extra horror into the episode, creates some room for lots of great dark jokes, and opens up the question, can you really ever be the last person alive? Which in itself is kind of creepy. My only complaint about this segment is that it feels quite short. Yes, I know Treehouse of Horror stories are usually very quick, but this one felt particularly brief. Maybe there could have been more wacky ways for Homer to enjoy his solitude in an empty Springfield. I think that could have added a bit more meat to the story. I still think it's a good segment though. Next in this anthology is Fly vs. Fly, inspired by the 1958 film The Fly. This segment has Homer buying a teleportation machine from Professor Frink. In an attempt to become a super-powered fly man, Bart goes into the machine with a common housefly, but comes out as a tiny insect with a human head, while his body has the fly's head. This episode opens up by exploring many comical ways that Homer can use the teleportation device, mainly to aid his laziness. These little bits are funny because we know that a part of us would use a machine like this for the same reasons. But once the fly-headed Bart appears, things get a bit more creepy. This monster is very memorable because we do end up hating him. He becomes a spoiled brat who feeds off human luxuries, tries to push Bart out of the picture, and tricks the naive Simpsons, who assume he is the real Bart. He also looks really grotesque and horrifying too. I can't imagine him frightening small children watching the show with their family. Due to all these factors, we genuinely want Bart to get his body back, just to knock this scary-faced shit-eating prick off his pedestal. It's a great motivation for getting the audience invested. I also like how Bart has a disadvantage as a fly. It makes his attempts at letting the Simpsons know the truth all the more exciting, because he has to go to extra lengths to get noticed. This is a classic Treehouse of Horror story that I do remember fondly enjoying as a kid. Easy Bake Coven is the final segment of this anthology. It's set during 1649 and has the men of Springfield accusing random townswomen of being witches. One day Marge is put under trial for being a witch, only to reveal that she really is one. Marge flies away home to Patty and Selma, who are also witches, and the three plan to eat all the children of Springfield. This tale takes a lot of cracks at the holes in 17th century witch trials, much like the classic Monty Python sketch She's a Witch, but it's all done with original Simpsons-esque humor.
Okay, here's how the process works. You sit on the broom and we shove you off the cliff.
What?
Well, hear me out. If you're innocent, you will fall to an honorable Christian death. If, however, you are the bride of Satan, you will surely fly your broom to safety. At that point, you will report back here for torture and beheading.
The methods used to weed out witches were truly silly back then, and certainly serve as right material for the show's writers. I do think this episode speaks primarily to children though, because it's very personal to childhood fears. I can imagine kids watching this one and being creeped out by the idea of witches knocking on doors with the intent to gobble up kids. Yes, it's all played for laughs, but there's a disturbing undertone here that I know children will resonate with, because they are the targeted victims of this tale. Luckily, the witches have their minds changed when Maud offers candy to the witches as an alternative to her kids being eaten. This works into a really charming way of explaining the origins of Halloween. I can actually imagine some children even buying into this backstory. This has to be my favourite segment of Treehouse of Horror 8, because it really does capture the Halloween spirit. It gives some creepy seasonal storytelling for kids, but also provides lots of dark satire for mature adults to read into. So, those were my thoughts on the stories from Treehouse of Horror 8. I've been Jambareeqi and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then feel free to subscribe to my channel, because I make a lot of videos quite like this one. Also, consider supporting me through my Patreon. It would be greatly appreciated if you could. Thank you. Just a note, I'm going to be hosting a Halloween Google Hangout for all my $5 plus patrons this 31st of October, so keep that in mind. Cheerio, folks.